Hello, everyone. How are we doing? It is that time again. Time for readings with Rebecca. Hey, everybody. Here I am. Here we go. It's time at the time on Saturday. It's time for the show. I really shouldn't try to sing on the bounce, should I? All ready with the tea and all that other fun stuff. Oh, man. I have been missing you guys as of late. Am I coming through like really, really loud? Let me know. Am I coming through like really, really loud? Let's see here. Let's open the widget. Please check the video resolution. Alright, let's see here. Because we are just going and having so much fun. Output. It does look a little strange there on the video, doesn't it? I am still getting this worked out. Alright. And we are back again. I am sorry about all the technical difficulties. I'm actually still getting everything going here. I think you can probably hear me. I think you can probably hear me a little too well, if such a thing is even possible. Let me see. Where are you, LifeCam? There we are. I think... I'm not sure. We are working right now on getting everything reconfigured. Let me see here. And we will be right back for all of the weirdness that's been going on today. I had to completely reinstall, what's it called? I had to completely reinstall all of this, and it's still just being terrible. It's just being terrible. But I've actually been frantically configuring this for the last 45 minutes, trying to get everything right, and I'm still running late. So once again, to all of my patrons, I am deeply, deeply sorry. I am here. What I had to do is that for whatever reason, when this thing configured, it configured for the wrong resolution. Even though I set it to the right resolution for YouTube, and for whatever reason, and so when I adjusted that, it threw everything literally sideways. Like everything was suddenly the wrong size, the wrong shape, all of that. And you know, I honestly thought that starting to work on this up to about an hour before would be long enough. But, you know, stuff happens. But you guys aren't here to listen to me complain about all of this. Am I still sounding okay? Do I need to lower my volume further? I'm still calibrating this, so I need your feedback. Also, because it is that time. Hey, hey. The amazing water break. So, I haven't been like around much lately on my chats and hanging out with everybody and stuff like that. Mainly, I've been cranking out up to 2,000 words a day on Starfall. It's been a very productive time, but I have been deep in the hole when it comes to production. Oh, angry water and tea. Which if I drink any more of this, I'm probably going to have some dead air here because I'm going to have to run to the litter box, as they say. I'm sure that's why you tuned in. You wanted to hear me make blithe references to that. But anyway, I've been hyper productive lately. with the writing. Starfall's moving along apace. I think I'll probably have it finished by the end of May at this rate, at which time I will either start with Angels of Our Yesterday or potentially the next novel in the Nightmare Gods series or my Z-verse or something. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go next. I tend to jump universes. I will start over here and then just pop over. But I just don't know what I'm going to do right now. I've been working on Starfall. Starfall is the third longest in terms of production, and it is my largest novel in terms of size. It's going to probably end up being between 120 and 150,000 words. We're at 110,000 words right now. And we're still going strong, but we're firmly into the final acts. So yeah, exactly. So how's everybody doing out there? Who we got out there? I see Damon Herrera, I see Nega Mewtwo, I see Ali, I see Travis, I see Maya, all of our regulars. Yep, Damon Herrera, that is book 10 of the Farthest Star universe. Starfall is. We are currently working on getting book 4, the creatively named Farthest Star, out, and that should be out by the end of the year this year. Please stay tuned to this space for further announcements. But yeah, while I've been recovering from a busted leg and just riding like crazy, everything else has kind of fallen by the wayside. Yeah, it's rainy here too. It's I mean, I live in the Pacific Northwest. Saying that it's raining up here is like saying that the sun is shining everywhere else, but that's generally just 6 months out of the year, which, people don't necessarily believe that, but it's true. When you live up in the PNW, about October it starts raining, and about February it stops. But then it starts to clear up, and we usually have beautiful summers. I mean, like 70, 80 degrees for highs, and beautiful blue skies and all that fun stuff. So, I mean, one of the reasons why the Pacific Northwest is a hiker's paradise is because we have just very gorgeous, very mild summers. We usually have one scorcher week, as I like to call it, where we're up in the 90s to 100, and with the humidity, it's pretty miserable, but like I said, it's a week. Oh, it's incredible. I grew up in West Texas, which, as some people might know it, the threshold of hell. For a lot of reasons. And what's it called? 120 degrees sometimes in June, 115, 110. Hardly ever rains. Dry, bitterly cold winters, dust storms. I would pretty much rather live just about anywhere on Earth than West Texas. Now, there are people that what's it called? Really love the deserts, really love those conditions, and more power to them. But I am definitely a mountains and lakes kind of gal, and I absolutely have wanted to live in the Pacific Northwest since I really started to learn about it when I was 18 years old. Oh yeah, Southeast Texas. Oh yeah, I had an aunt that lived in Longview, Texas for a while, in Marshall. I have very dear friends that live in Houston, or as I like to affectionately refer to it, the world's largest dryer vent. I understand that Dallas, because I've spent a lot of time in Dallas as well, competes for that title with great regularity. So, yeah, Texas, fun. And Travis, if I remember right, you are from Utah. Very beautiful state. Pretty good people, too, from my experience. Especially judging by my friendship with you. You are just an absolutely rad soul. So I'm very glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're going to be showing that you've been showing up. Up in Michigan? Really? Jeez, Murphy. You guys must have been just really suffering. That's unusual. But yeah, reading Exile's Return. We're on chapter 8. We're going to go through at least 2 chapters today. Snow got her briefing. The last time we were here, she talked to Charlie. She opened up a little bit about why she shifted, and the hope. Actually opened up more about the hope than she ever has to this point. And yeah, and this is kind of where we're at. She's kind of frustrated and feeling misanthropic and is very much in an I'm judging you mood when it comes to humanity. So yeah, fun, fun, fun. Yeah, that was the way it was for me too when I was in school. Nega, we always went back to marching band camp like 2 or 3 weeks before school started, which was always early August in West Texas, and no, just no. It would be so hot and we'd be out in this dusty, dusty parking lot. Thank the gods it wasn't asphalt. And we'd be marching around doing maneuvers at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Let me see here. Getting the Darth Vader effect going on the bounce, huh? Just, Luke, I am your father's sister's brother's former roommate. So what does that make us? Absolutely nothing. Gotta go for Spaceballs when you can. Absolutely. Spaceballs! The product placement. So if I seem frazzled and a little all over the place right now, it's probably because I'm feeling frazzled and all over the place right now. Oh wow, Nega. Yeah. Hardcore, buddy. Hardcore. Oh man. One of the things I remember about walking on the side of roads and stuff that happened when I was living in Texas in the summers was how the heat would reflect off the asphalt. And it was just, it was like standing on top of a heater. It was so crazy. Yeah, you've got to be careful when you're marching. You really do. It's a lot harder than it looks. No problem, Damon. Thanks for showing up. Really appreciate you being here. And yeah, tomorrow, it's a great segue. We've got readings with Rebecca at noon. So, shall we get into it, guys? I figure we'll go and do like 2 or 3 chapters today. That sound good? I've got 6 concurrent viewers. My goodness. If I only had 6 more, it would be like the Last Supper. Hopefully not. One of those guys just wasn't on board. My goodness, the pagan is making Christian jokes. Am I that desperate? Am I that all over the place? Well, this week I kinda am. Not desperate, but all over the place. Clarity, Becca. Clarity, clarity. Oh, man. All the chapters. Yes, Ellie. Yes, we will eventually get through all of the chapters. But I'm going to be asking from you guys, the ones that are here that really enjoyed this. What should I read next? I want you to really be thinking about that. Should I go right into Rise of the Forgotten? Or should I move over to Ghosts of the Nightmare Gods? But be thinking about that. That doesn't have to be determined now. We're only 23% of the way through Exile's Return. And with no further delays in mind, let's get into it, huh? Here we go. Also, I am using a new... Did I just freeze? I think I just froze. Let me see here. Can you see me? Have I frozen? I think I have frozen. Why have I frozen? Let me see here. There we go. Now we're back. Ooh, Nightmare Gods. Oh no, it's fine, Allie. I am continuing to have technical difficulties. So you're lagging and I'm dragging. I'm not actually dragging, but there is a dragon in the audience. At least one. Awesome. Once again, I am so sorry for all the difficulty this week. But let's get into it, shall we? Exile's Return, Chapter 8. Do you guys like this dark mode, by the way? We can definitely do Nightmare Gods because I have got the Kindle program on the go. I've got it largely configured. And wow, I think you guys really want to hear about Sean and Sky. So, since you guys are usually the ones that are here, that's pretty definitive. 2 dragons, count them. 2. Oh God, do not say that, Allie. Do not say that. Busy knows he is in a book. Busy is really pissed off about this fact. Busy freaking terrifies me. Three dragons. You know, it's just the next one. It has been determined. The choice has been made. We will jump to Nightmare Gods for the next reading. I mean, 95% of the people that are there are here, are the ones that are normally here. So that's pretty definitive. We're just missing Finley and Damon because he had to jet. So majority rules, man. This is far above 2/3. But anyway, before I get any more rambly and off topic, the book right there. Read it. Well, I should read it. Well, you guys are also free to read along. This is like, the ultimate subtitle right here. But, what do I know? Would this be subtitle? Or would it be like Dom title? Because there's so much of it. Okay, that was a terrible, terrible joke. I am not on at all this week. But... yeah. The one thing I can say, though, is at least I didn't create humans. Alright? That would be the real nightmare. And apparently I'm good at missing my face. But anyway. Chapter 8. Exile's Return by Rebecca All Over the Place Mickley. Thanks, Travis. Always good to meet a fan. I sat in the entryway to my quarters and stared at the door. I needed to leave. I needed to get out and away from this place and my memories. It wasn't home, but it was all I had. I was scared, though. I had been warned to keep a low profile, keep my head down, see to my mission. But in that moment, if I didn't get out, I felt as if I would scream. I took a deep breath, tapped my wrist device, and began to explore the ship. Roaming the corridors of the steel labyrinth that was the Rome, I made my way past the entertainment decks, briefing rooms, and generic decks of gray-walled quarters. Most of the floors on the crew decks were graded and not smooth, which allowed for easier access to the pipes and wires beneath, but they would catch on my paws, and after a while they started to hurt. I found, slowly, that my exploration was not having the calming effect I had expected. I wasn't used to this, to being surrounded on all sides by people, to the strange and artificial noises. I was keeping it in control, but I was still feeling terribly down and homesick. Every now and then I'd run into a shocked or curious crew member, surprised to see a snowshoe hare wandering about the decks. Morphics were officially banned from service after all, and for a moment I worried that my presence was causing a stir. Quickly putting it out of my mind, though, I continued on my travels. I needed this, and surely my presence, while unexpected, wouldn't cause a riot. I came across two large double doors that seemed to have a lot of people going through them. When the door opened, it smelled like all manner of food. It seemed to be the main mess hall of the ship. Curious, I hopped up to the double doors, hit my wrist device, and the doors slid open. What followed next was the sound of thunderous silence. The gallery was full of people noisily enjoying their meal, until they saw me, that is, and then one by one, everyone started to get quiet. No one expected an animal to walk in on dinner. The curiosity and tension rose in the air, forcing me to freeze out of sheer instinct. My head cleared, and I realized how stupid I had been. Shaking myself out of my defense mechanism, I worked my way backwards out the door, the way I came. As I exited the mess hall, my mind, nearing full panic, put it all together. I had assumed too much about how little I would be noticed. As the nauseating feeling moved through me, my only thought was returning to my quarters, contacting Charlie, and hiding away. Hopping down the corridor, I was suddenly interrupted by someone yelling my full name. "Snow! Snow Dockant! Just a few minutes, please!" I froze. Who would know me here? I slowly stopped to turn around and sat up on my hind paws, scanning ahead. I saw this woman running up, which immediately sent my instincts into overdrive, and then there was a man shoving a bright light in my face. Reflexively, I backed away and tried to dip my head away from the light. Aggressively, the woman started yelling questions. "How does it feel to be the first Morphic to serve aboard a UEA starship?" she asked in a tone that demanded answers. I swallowed. She was a reporter. Oh God, this was the last thing I needed. How the hell had she found out I was here? No comment, I said shakily. "Do you think this is a big step for Morphic rights? Do you support the full inclusions of Morphics in the military?" She was pushy and rude. My heart was racing. I needed to get out of this. "No comment, please! No questions!" I was growing desperate. I looked around for someone, anyone, wishing Charlie was nearby. I was trying to hold it together, but she had me cornered. Pressed up against a bulkhead, I could feel my chest heaving. Sensing my discomfort, she continued with her relentless assault. "Do you see the Chancellor as a Morphic sympathizer? Do you believe he is being influenced by the Mendeans unknowingly?" My heart darted side to side. There was no way out. "Please, let me through! No comment! God, leave me alone!" I tried to press through, but she kept yelling and shouting at me. Everything in me told me to run. I was scared and descending into full-blown panic. The reporter woman, she didn't seem to have any care about my state or condition. She just kept badgering me. I felt my hindpaw thump, thump, thump against the floor as my fear mounted and my instincts raged within me, trying to take control. My heart was beating a mile a minute. Then I heard someone shout across the hallway. "Caroline, who let you out of your cage? Leave the ambassador alone. I'm afraid you're going to have to come with me, or you will be leaving as soon as we hit space dock," the man said, grasping the upper arm of the reporter. "Oh, a girl has a right to a story. Besides, this is the biggest thing to hit in months, and right aboard the Rome. Come on, what harm is a few little questions?" She pulled away, looking almost angry, in that nonplussed professional manner of business executives. The man knelt down and looked at me. Quietly told him I was okay, but physically I was panting. My chest was heaving, and I felt more than a little scared. Looking back up at the reporter, I heard him speak. "She looks like she's about to have a heart attack. You need to back off now. Part of your embedding agreement says you will cooperate." He was more stern now, an air of tension in his voice. "Oh, fine, whatever." Dejectedly, she motioned to her cameraman to turn off the camera. The blazing white light was suddenly out of my eyes. I could see the security officer after I blinked a few times, and he made a little motion with his head, telling me to leave. I wasted no time. I saw my opening and jetted down the corridor. Don't know if I breathed again until I was back in my quarters, seeking out the peace of my bed, my soft, nice, safe place. I settled down. As I caught my breath, I realized that the secret that was my mission was now out in the open. Fumbling with my computer, I slapped my paw down on the interface and said, "Computer, activate newsfeed. Space news." A story alert flashed in violent reds across the screen, portending doom or the latest celebrity breakup. Quietly, I watched, turning up the volume. Reporting tonight from the UEAS Rome, Caroline Alvarez on embedded assignment, interviewed the new Mendian ambassador, Snow Dawkins. There I was on the screen, panting and scared, shouting "no comment" over and over, looking like a trapped and scared animal. The humans would certainly not like that. Breathlessly, her voice broke in. "As you can see, the new Morphic ambassador to the Mendians was not too talkative and obviously very afraid. Just what was she afraid of? Exposure? Attention? Why would a diplomat need to worry? It's up to you, our viewers, to decide." The announcer came back on. "And we take you now to the Earth capital in The Hague, where the Chancellor has issued an official statement. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, as you are well aware, a secret executive order was made public against the strong urgings of Earth Central and at the expense of global security. We condemn the actions of those who so recklessly disregard the safety of Earth to bring a sensitive mission to light. In regard to the executive order, the Chancellor and the Council of Seven determined that contact with the Mendians was of sufficient value to take this extraordinary action. As you are well aware, it has been many years since our last contact, and we felt that continued communication is the only safeguard we have to a further and productive alliance. Now, we have no time for questions. Thank you for coming, and may Earth and her colonies continue to prosper." The room lit up with questions as the head of communications left the podium emblazoned with the United Earth Alliance seal. Everywhere camera flashes went off as the room descended into a cacophonous din. The cameras were now back at the news desk as the reporter went on. "Is this the newest scandal to rock Earth Center at The Hague? Is the Chancellor a Morphic sympathizer? Let's go now to our military correspondent, retired Major General Johnny Rizzuto. General, what, if any, impact is this going to have on UEA readiness?" "Well, I can tell you it's going to be devastating to the morale of the men. History shows that the military is only as strong as its weakest link, and if we have seen anything from the video, she is obviously weak. Morphics do not serve for a reason. Their adopted deficiencies and instincts make them unfit for service. I strongly condemn this action by Earth Central." He was full of hatred and vitriol, his bald face red on the screen. "Our vaunted Chancellor says that our Mendean alliance is of sufficient importance to disregard the morale and safety of our men. I wonder how the military feels about that. Now, our men aren't cowards. They will gladly lay their lives down on the line for Earth, but subverting the natural order of our military by letting this thing serve is a slap in the face to everyone wearing a uniform. I say Earth first. Send the Mendeans a proper ambassador and send the bunny back to whatever hole they pulled her out of." That said, they cut back to the anchor. Strong words tonight, but let's see what you, the viewers, think. I turned it down and looked briefly away from the screen. It was a train wreck. It went on and on. People screaming anti-morphic slurs, images of mounting protests at continental capitals, people with angry picket signs shouting, "Earth first! Earth first!" The story was out, and it set the world on fire. Lost in the horror, I continued to watch. They already had my service record. Oh God, they talked about that one time in that bar in Calcutta. Up until I shifted, I still had the tattoo from that night. I buried my head in shame, my past being exposed, my face all over the news. I had gone from being a relatively happy nobody to a very unhappy somebody. The door chimed. I swallowed hard, wondering if you could be thrown in the brig for having a bad interview. I shakily tapped the button on my wrist device and Charlie bolted through the door. "Quite a mess, little lady. What have you gotten yourself into?" he asked in a caring, almost fatherly tone. "Well, a few days ago, someone took me off my rock and threw me into this meat grinder," I responded deadpan and feeling completely serious. He laughed. "Yeah, about that. I'm really sorry, especially now. Man, Space News is getting them all whipped up. By the way, I was sent by the Admiral. He wants you in the briefing room in 5 minutes." Well, shit. I guess that sums up that chapter rather well. Well, shit. Hashtag demonetized. I think that's everybody's like high school nightmare, and there's always that question, are you with or without pants in that nightmare? Either way, it sucks. But without pants, things sucks more. So you guys having a good time out there? Are we ready to continue along? Oh, man. Well, it's written from the point of view of an anxiety-ridden prey animal. Hi. Have you met me? Oh, and Snow, too. But anyway. Chapter 9. Allie, you should check out on YouTube sometime. These Are Not My Pants. The Rock Opera by Five Iron Frenzy. It was a 15-minute, I think it was maybe 30-minute bonus compilation at the end of one of their albums. I think Quantity is Job 1, where they sing in multiple different styles. These are not my pants. Whose pants are they anyway? Truly a pinnacle achievement in the history of all musical composition. To be fair, Nega Mewtwo, there is nothing that stresses me out more than getting a text or a person that says, "We need to talk later." And it just hangs in the air with all of the gravity of a guillotine hanging right over your neck. My anxiety goes up to 9 or 10, sometimes 11, because this is Spinal Tap. We The panic just goes crazy when that happens. There is nothing more terrible. Well, no, there are plenty of things more terrible, but it is quite terrible to hear those few words. We need to talk. 4 little words, and I'm a train wreck. But there we go. Chapter 9. Let's get into it, shall we? A security detail arrived at my door, and in the center of armed, very serious-looking humans, we made our way to the briefing room, quickly and without incident. The briefing room, the Admiral was chewing what smelled like antacids to my sensitive twitching nose as I hopped in. Snow, this isn't going to be easy for you, but you are going to have to make a statement. The Admiral was looking 30 years older from stress. Are you nuts? I blurted, completely forgetting rank and protocol. I'd remind you of your rank, Captain, but I fully understand your reaction, and to answer your question, I suspect we're all a little bit nuts right now. Still, what just happened in the corridor was a legitimate Charlie Foxtrot, and we need you to give them something else to talk about. Don't worry about the reporter. Caroline will be the only one there, and she can't ask any questions, I promise. If she does, we will stun her and throw her out the airlock. Right now, nothing would make me happier. I started to chuckle inwardly, but then I noticed that he looked completely serious. The Admiral gave me a disarming smile, and I swallowed hard, thinking of what was coming next. What do I say? I don't have anything written. We already have a prepared statement. Stick to these points, but make it your own. I know this isn't the best time for you to make your public speaking debut, but we have to find some way to change the focus of this thing. He turned away and put a hand to his temples. The stress in the room was palpable. The only way to diffuse this was for me to go on the air. So what's next? How much time do I have? I asked, and tried not to show my own stress, which at the moment was considerable. We have to move fast. You only have 15 minutes to prepare, the Admiral said, motioning to my left as he held out his hand. Your audience awaits, Captain. I entered the ad hoc press room, wishing I could still sweat. In the back of my mind, the doctor's orders to take it easy flashed through my mind as I felt Charlie lift me up on the box that allowed me to rise above the podium. Looking down, I could see the speech on the teleprompter screen, and laid into the podium with one solitary, isolated chair in front of me. 2 security officers stood silently like golems on either side of the door, ready to do their duty. 15 minutes passed quicker than I would have ever liked. Right on time, Caroline Alvarez and her cameraman arrived, escorted to the entrance by the young security officer who had rescued me earlier. He looked up and saw me close to shaking on the podium, gave me a thumbs up, and proceeded back out the door. As she moved forward towards her seat, I heard her heels clanking on the steel below, driving into my brain her cat-like movements. I looked up into her eyes and saw a predator smiling back at me, ready to pounce. Charlie stood in the back, and I chose to look at him instead. The cameraman gave a wave as the bright lights went on. It was time to make my statement. I froze, staring forward blankly like a deer caught in headlights. Charlie quietly moved around the edge of the room and whispered, "Snow, you're on. You're on." I snapped back to reality, almost stammered, but held it back, only stumbling on the first word. Good evening. I am Snow Dawkins, formerly Lieutenant Dawkins of the UEAS Danube. 8 years ago, I was part of the first contact team that led to the Treaty of Gates with the Mendeans. This historic treaty opened up a dialogue with a powerful ally and allowed us to explore our universe in ways never dreamed possible. It was through the gifts of our Mendean friends that the first extrasolar colonies were founded and many technologies beneficial to humanity were brought to reality. I took a deep breath, tried desperately not to focus on the butterflies thrashing at my stomach, and continued. Recently, Armandian allies have made a special request of the United Earth Alliance, again asking me to join them for negotiations. I am deeply honored to have been chosen to represent Earth at this time, as I feel it is a path to greater cooperation between our two peoples. Tonight, I tell you that my commitment to Earth is strong, and I stand with the UEA Chancellor's decision to honor the request of such an important ally that has been so integral to the prosperity and expansion of the human race. I am currently involved in intense preparation in order to best represent Earth, and am excited about the opportunity to serve my world once again. Thank you, and may Earth continue to prosper. I began to swoon, and the box moved. Charlie dashed up behind me and managed to get there and kept me from falling. I looked up at him and whispered meekly, "I don't think I feel too good." Dimly, I felt him lift me and carry me out of the room. By the time we got to the med bay, I was beginning to feel slightly more oriented as Charlie laid me down on an open bed. Blinked my eyes a few times against the suddenly too bright lights. My mind felt thick and my heart was racing. "That was quite a speech, and a nice dive on the ending. I give it a 7 total," Charlie said, not sparing an inch of his rapier wit. "Stuff it, Charlie." I dipped my muzzle and put my paws atop my head. "Doc, please tell me you have something for my head. It's pounding." "We have some ibuprofen. I know to avoid aspirin," he said. I looked up at him, surprised. "That'll work. Thanks, Doc. It's a pity nanites don't work for stress headaches." I reeled a bit, but caught myself before I could topple over. "I can agree with that," the doctor said, handing me the ibuprofen. "We have a special stock of it, dosed for your body size." You guys really did plan for everything. We even knew aspirin was toxic to my species type. Thanks for caring, Doc. I took the pill, swallowed it, and wished it were more instant in its effects. My mind was clearing, and it felt good until I realized I may have swooned on live television. I looked up at Charlie nervously and asked, "Did that go out live?" "No, it wasn't live at all. We edited the tape and gave it back to the reporter before she was allowed to leave the room. She wasn't happy, but the Admiral reminded her of her place. Don't worry, it's handled," Charlie said, nodding. I was instantly grateful. "That's good. I was so nervous up there, and right now all I want to do is go back to my quarters. Doc, am I cleared to go?" I hopped off the bed, looking up at the doctor. "Well, I have no objections," the doc said helpfully. "You just got overstimulated and had a mild anxiety attack. I'm sure it's somewhat common in hares. I must caution you, though, I am not a morphic doctor. Still, you should be fine. Remember my advice, try and take it easy and call me if you have any problems. Also, you should probably avoid any more press conferences." He reached out and patted me between the ears, chuckling, and turned away. "Thanks, Doc," I said. Chapter 10. Legitimate Charlie Foxtrot. One of the things that I did when I was writing Exile's Return, and something I still try to do now, is I try to get the lingo right-ish for military and stuff like that. But because of that, I don't always get a chance to explain it, and I rely on my reader to engage context clues, which is what you just did, Nega. So thank you for proving uh, my my maxim that it will come through. I've had debates with some of my beta readers about my use of acronym. Um, I've gotten better at conveying meaning as I've gone on, but sometimes it's best just to leave it hanging out there because the realization is fun on its own. But let's do another chapter, and then I guess let's call it for the day. Sound good, guys? 3 chapters is pretty solid, I think. Because I think I know what's coming next. Chapter 10. I was sipping juice and relaxing in the dark of my quarters, enjoying the peace and quiet after such a stressful day when I heard my door chime. I stood on my hind paws and hit the communicator panel near my bed. I was surprised to hear Charlie on the other end of the line. Hey, Snow, did I wake you? No, just relaxing in the dark, but it's kinda late. What's going on? Another emergency? After the day I had, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was about to tell me to abandon ship. No, everything's okay, just need a few minutes of your time. Are you gonna let me in or not? He prompted in his normal, joking manner. I tapped the little button on my wrist device and the door slid open to reveal Charlie, and standing behind him was a small, nervous-looking man in his early 20s. He was scrawny and seemed very awkward. Charlie turned and faced him and asked him to wait outside for just a few minutes. He quietly agreed, turned, almost tripped over his own boots, and stepped out of my quarters with the door sliding closed behind him. So who's that, your kid brother? I asked teasingly. Haha, very funny. No, but he is a youngster. First year in the service and first posting Starside. He's in cryptographic communications and was top of his class, so they put him on the first transport out here, which, coincidentally, was the LRRC. So why are you here? I pressed for answers. Oh, well, when you spend 2 weeks in a small spacecraft with someone, you kind of get to know them. And I happen to think your unique perspective could help him out, he said, cryptically. Charlie, do I need to bring him in here to decode what you're asking? What in the hell could I do to help him? I was growing impatient, but I could tell he was enjoying this. He wants to ask about being a morphic, Snow. He thinks he might be one. I stared at Charlie and just nodded slowly. Shit. I don't know.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Could you please repeat what you said?
Shit. Well, I don't know how much help I can offer, but yeah, I'll talk to him. Just because I went through the process doesn't make me an expert, you know. I swallowed, feeling nervous, but in that moment I couldn't exactly fathom why. All I ask is that you talk to him, Snow. He's a good kid. Sucks at poker, but a real talker when you get him going. For what it's worth, I really think you can help him, he said, reassuringly. Okay, you got me. Show him in. I swallowed nervously. Charlie opened the door after setting a chair near the bed I was perched on and let in the young ensign. He was pale with nervousness and even had a vague smell of fear. Just being here was taking courage for him. Charlie quietly reassured him, then spoke. I will just be outside, Snow. You need anything, just tap the communicator. His name is Bradley, by the way. Charlie smiled, gave me a thumbs up, and stepped out of my quarters. We stood there for a few minutes. I looked at him and he looked at me. I don't think any of us knew how to get things started. Finally, I spoke. Kid, or Bradley, Charlie said you had some questions for me. For once, I was grateful to break a silence. He tapped his foot, looking up at the ceiling and then down at the floor. He seemed afraid to make eye contact, but I could tell his question was important. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he looked down at me and almost shouted, "What's it like being a morphic?" The words veritably poured out of him, like a great pressure being relieved. I don't know. What's it like being a human? I retorted, quickly, inwardly cursing myself for my sarcasm. He looked at me quizzically, and then laughed uncontrollably at my response. I think it was the first time I had seen him breathe the entire time he had been there. Come on now, really. What made you do it? He asked, pressing me. I looked down thoughtfully, memories of my time before shift flooding into me. I felt I had to. There was this deep inner drive that's always been with me. Something has always told me that my identity was something other, outside of human. I've talked to a lot of morphics, and they all felt very similar. No one just woke up one day and decided to tank with something that was always inside them. Does that make sense? Took a deep breath and hoped dearly I was helping this kid. Yeah, I think so. If it's you, he replied thoughtfully. So tell me, what was it like, the boosters, the tanking? Did any of it hurt? Something in how he spoke conveyed a depth and a need He looked at me hopefully. I smiled and stretched out, reveling in happy memories. The boosters are the most fun because you're awake for it. You get to watch your whiskers develop, feel new instincts, touch your fur. To use a religious metaphor, it's like slowly being born again, and it's so exciting you don't mind the soreness, or the nausea, or the fatigue. It's not easy, but if you want it bad enough, you put up with the good and the bad. The tanking, well, you have about 2 minutes conscious before the meds take effect. You're floating and warm. It's completely comfortable in a way that I haven't experienced since. Then you drift to sleep. He opened his mouth to reply or maybe ask another question, but I wasn't done. I was busy traversing through the most beautiful memories of my life. Waking up is beautiful. Your eyes open and you're in the tank, and logically your brain knows everything is different. Everything has changed. But by this time the neural pathways are in place and it feels natural. If it was still part of me, I would have wept as I saw my forepaw twitch in my vision as I opened new eyes on the world, and to be honest, I have seen many blended morphics who do. I don't want to romanticize this too much for you, but my waking was the happiest moment of my life. I took a deep breath and savored that moment, reliving it again. Took a deep breath after a few minutes of silent reflection and refocused. Charlie tells me you're thinking of tanking, or at least Geomorphic. I've been there, right where you are now. If you want to talk to me about it? If you want, talk to me about it. Reached out, wanting to help him. He looked down with the air of someone on the verge of confession. He heaved a heavy sigh, and as he spoke, I saw a weight lift off of him. I feel like a mouse. Like that's what I am inside? He stammered a bit, nervous, but he pushed on. I know that seems silly or not masculine or whatever, but I know exactly what you mean. I just haven't figured out how to go about it yet. I don't think I want to go as far as you. I just would like to be different than I am now. I can't tell you how often I've looked out at the stars and wondered about this, or even if it's right for me. Still, your experience, it's amazing, and I can't tell you how often I've wanted something like this. Sometimes it feels like something's trying to claw its way out of me. I saw a tear fall. He took a deep, halting breath and looked down, processing through his burden. I reached out and put a paw on his knee, trying to reassure him. My advice is don't rush it. I planned on having my whole career before I shifted. Wanted to make sure I was set up. Didn't work out that way, but there is nothing wrong with taking it slow. Part of me is really impatient. Ambassador, really impatient, but the rest of me looks at the world and the way things are, and I don't know, I feel like I'm going to go crazy trying to make my decision. I'd love to be me, but I don't want to be beaten to death in an alley either. It's not like I can run off and join a colony. I mean, my whole family is back on Earth. I don't want to leave them. Eventually, you're going to have to make a choice, but you have your entire life to figure out who you are, and I'm sure you have time. Don't rush it. A piece of advice, though, don't be afraid to move either. Life is better if you live it the way you need to, not the way they tell you to, I said gently. Kid, I think you're going to be fine. You won't believe me now, but in the end it's an easy choice. You just have to decide how much being yourself and true to yourself matters to you. If you ask me though, I think deep down you might have chosen already. I smiled and rose up on my hind paws. He grinned at me and wiped his eyes. You've given me a lot to think about, Snow, thank you, but for now I should get back to my quarters. I go on duty in a couple hours. Seriously. Thank you. He reached over and hugged me. Something inside briefly panicked and then calmed down, and with that he left. Charlie re-entered as Bradley departed, and he was smiling at me. So, do we have a new convert to the Church of Cute and Fluffy? He quipped quickly. Stop it, Charlie! Good God! Fell over giggling. Yeah, I know it's terrible. That's why you won't stop laughing. He smiled at me and ruffled my ears. Seriously though, how did it go with the kid? He was obviously enjoying my reaction. I really think he's going to be fine. Charlie has his whole life ahead of him. I have no doubt he's going to achieve his dream. I took a deep breath. I felt good. Better than I had the whole mission. Charlie, why don't we pull out some materials and review a few hours? I'm in the mood to work. I stretched and eyed my console with serious intent. Aye, Captain. Whatever you say, Charlie quipped, pulling the chair up near my computer. We worked diligently on Mendian protocols for a few hours until my eyes were ready to go crossed with information. My head was stuffy, and the resolve I had shown a few hours ago had finally given way to fatigue. It had been a very full day. Charlie yawned and suggested we call it a night. I would have agreed, but I was already close to dozing in bed as he quietly rose and left. The door chime rang and pulled me from the depths of a peaceful sleep. I hit the communication panel next to my bed and grumbled out, "Just a minute!" The room was dark and peaceful and so cozy. A clock showed in a garish red light that it was 0300 hours. I heard the door chime again and immediately felt grumpy. What was so important and urgent that it couldn't wait until this morning? What the hell was going on? I stretched and turned the lights up to an acceptable level, already mourning my lost sleep, and headed towards the door. I opened it expecting to see Charlie with a security detail. What I saw were 3 men in black hoods and riot sticks. "What's going on? Is there trouble?" I asked, confused. I saw one of the men and his face twisted into a sick smile. "Yeah, for you, bitch." With that, he grabbed me quickly by the ears, lifted me up, and cracked me hard in the ribs with his stick. I felt pain flood through my body as I heard the crack of my bones. I squealed out from the impact, and he let me fall heavily to the floor. Trying to move and get away, I reached out with my right forepaw to pull myself away from the door, but a vicious stick came down and cracked across my foreleg, shattering the bone. I squealed in pain, again as they surrounded me, beating me again and again until I was almost numb to the impact. Coughing up blood, I sputtered, gasping for breath, spraying it across the floor when I heard, "That's enough. Finish the morphic bitch." With that, I felt an awful crack across my skull. Neural activity ceased. Log suspended. Entering standby mode. And there we go. We are right at a good stopping point, and that's exactly where I thought we would be. So, we're losing people. Nega, when you watch the rest of this later, thank you so much for being here. I guess that'll be it for today. Don't forget, tomorrow we have hair-raising games where we will continue with Ori and the Blind Forest. And yeah, until next time, guys, we'll see you out there. All right.